All right, guys, following Tuesday's sports wagering action, we're now 3-0 in our last three board member tier package bets on BrockPage.com. And the link for today's board member tier package bet is in the description section below. $1,000 bettors are up over $2,700 during that stretch alone. I also have other memberships on that website beginning at just $1.99. And if you want to access that package, the link for my $1.99 daily best play is also in the description section below. Now, if you want to access my current sports betting record right now, you can also do that for free by going to BrockPage.com. It's actually located right there on the home page. And if you want to know what the difference is between what I do here on YouTube and what I do on my website, I'll explain a little bit more about that at the end of the video. But with that, guys, let's go ahead and dive into some free content. We're going to start off with the Pirates taking on the Brewers, 1:40 Eastern start time on Wednesday, April 20th, 2022. Happy 420 to you out there. Smoke them if you got them. Milwaukee's minus 240, totals 8 runs. Brandon Woodruff for Milwaukee, Mitch Keller for Pittsburgh. And even though Keller's had a rough start to the season, he's having no issue striking batters out. He's actually fanned 8 batters in just over 7 innings of work. Pittsburgh's also got themselves a winning record against the run line this year, and they currently find themselves in the top 10 in the league in team batting average. Michael Chavis is batting .450 at the plate with an OPS of 1.250. Meanwhile, Ke'Bryan Hayes is batting .333 with 4 doubles and 5 runs scored. Now they're taking on a Brewers team who's struggled when they're up to bat themselves. These guys are averaging just over 3.5 runs a game, and they're also in the bottom 5 in the majors in team batting average. Now pitching-wise, Brandon Woodruff comes into today's start with a 7.27 ERA and a 1.50 whip. Very uncharacteristic numbers for Woodruff. When it comes to the total in this one, 6 out of Milwaukee's last 10 meetings with Pittsburgh fell under the line. So if you're into historical trends, you certainly want to think about that one there. Now, they also saw 7 out of their last 9 this season fall under the line as well. I'm going to lean toward Pittsburgh plus 1.5 in the under 8 runs. Next matchup, White Sox Guardians game 1. And that's going to be a 2:10 Eastern first pitch. Cleveland's minus 135, totals 8 runs. Shane Bieber for the Guardians, Dallas Keuchel for Chicago. Now, Keuchel comes into today's start with a 5.40 ERA. Meanwhile, offensively, the White Sox have struggled with OPS. They're currently in the bottom 10 in the majors in that particular category. They're taking on a Cleveland pitching staff who's had little problems shutting down their opponents at the plate. They're actually in the top 10 in the majors in opponents' OPS themselves, and they're amongst the leaders in the American League in opponents' batting average as well. Now, Shane Bieber comes into game 1 here today with a 2.70 ERA and a .70 whip. Meanwhile, offensively, this Cleveland lineup is scoring more runs per contest than any other team in the majors. Now, total-wise, 5 out of Cleveland's last 7 ball games got over the posted number. So even though these doubleheaders, they're 7-inning games, I think the Guardians should be able to help put this one over the number. Meanwhile, Chicago, on the other side, they saw 2 out of their last 3 road games get over the line themselves. I'm going to lean toward Cleveland minus $1.35 and the over 8 runs in game 1. Next matchup, Phillies, Rockies, 3:10 p.m. East. Philadelphia's minus $1.20, totals 11 runs. Zach Eflin for the Phils, German Marquez for Colorado. Now, Marquez has 8 strikeouts on the season, along with a 3.97 ERA. And no real surprise here, this Colorado pitching staff has done a terrific job of keeping the ball inside the ballpark. Now, offensively, this Rockies lineup has been destroying the baseball right now. They currently lead the majors in team batting average, and they've got C.J. Cron, who leads the bigs in homers with 6 of them. Meanwhile, teammate Connor Joe, he's hit a couple of bombs himself. He's also got himself a 1.056 OPS. No real surprise here. The Rockies are averaging nearly 5.5 runs a game at the plate. Now they're taking on a Phillies team on the other side of things who's actually having trouble getting batters out. They're in the bottom 5 in opponents' OPS, and they're giving up well over 5 runs a game. Zach Eflin also comes into today's start with a 4.50 ERA and a 1.38 WHIP. When it comes to the total in this one, 6 out of Philly's last 10 meetings with Colorado did fall under the line. Meanwhile, the Rockies on the other side of things, they are 6-3 to the under at Coors Field this year. I'm going to lean toward Colorado plus $1 and the under 11 runs. Next matchup, it is going to be Braves taking on the Dodgers, 3:10 Eastern first pitch. The LA Dodgers are minus 130, totals 8.5. Tony Gonsolin for Los Angeles, Charlie Morton for Atlanta. Now Morton comes into today's ball game with a 6.10 ERA and a 1.45 WHIP. As a matter of fact, this Atlanta pitching staff is amongst the worst in the game right now. They're currently in the bottom 5 in the majors in runs allowed per 9. Now they're taking on a dangerous Los Angeles lineup here who scores 5.5 runs a game themselves, and they also rank in the top 5 in the majors in team batting average. Chris Taylor is batting .313 with 4 extra base hits and 6 RBI. Meanwhile, Freddie Freeman's batting .295 himself with 4 extra base hits as well. Now, when it comes to the number, 7 out of LA's last 11 ball games fell under the posted total. Meanwhile, Atlanta went 4-1 to the under in their last 5 outings themselves. I'm going to lean toward the LA Dodgers minus 130 in the under 8.5. Next ball game, Reds, Pods, 4:10 p.m. East. San Diego's minus $2, totals 8.5. Mackenzie Gore for San Diego. Vlad Gutierrez for Cincinnati. Vladdy's off to a rough start here. He's 0-2 with a 5.40 ERA and a 1.92 WHIP. And aside from having one of the worst pitching staffs in baseball right now, the Chicago lineup offensively has been equally as bad hitting the baseball. And they're striking out nearly 11 times a game. And they also have a team batting average of just 178. They're taking on a superb Padres pitching staff on the other side, who actually ranks in the top 5 in baseball in opponents' batting average. Mackenzie Gore comes into today's ball game with a 3.38 ERA and a .94 WHIP. And when it comes to striking batters out, the Pods are actually amongst the best teams in the National League in strikeouts per 9. Now, total-wise, San Diego's averaging nearly 5.5 runs a game in their last 10 meetings against Cincinnati. Meanwhile, the Reds on the other side of things, they are currently 67% to the over for the entire season this year themselves. I'm going to lean towards San Diego minus 1.5 and the over 8.5 runs. Next ball game, White Sox Guardians game 2. That's going to be a 5:40 Eastern start time. Cleveland's minus 120 in game 2, totals 8.5. Tristan McKenzie for the Guardians, Jimmy Lambert for Chicago. Now, Jimmy's 0-1 with an ERA of 6 even. And like I said earlier, the White Sox are amongst the worst in the American League, and opponents' OPS really struggling to keep runners off the bases. Now, they're taking on a Cleveland lineup on the other side who's led by Owen Miller, who's hit 9 extra base hits already. And he also has an OPS of 1.510. Hello.
Hello.
How are you?
Good, how are you?
Good, now get out of my face.
Don't tell me that.
Okay, teammate Jose Ramirez. He leads the majors in RBI with 15 of them. This Cleveland lineup's had little issues putting runners across the plate this year. They're scoring nearly 6 runs a game on average. Now, pitching-wise, Tristan McKenzie's got a 1.00 WHIP, along with 7 strikeouts in 7 innings of work. When it comes to the scoring in this one, once again, 5 out of Cleveland's last 7 ball games got over the posted number. I realize these are short and condensed doubleheader games here, but I still think that total can get over. I'm going to lean toward Cleveland minus $120 and the over 8.5 in game 2. Next ball game, Orioles taking on the A's, 6:07 Eastern start time. Oakland's minus a buck and a quarter, totals 8. Dalton Jeffries for Oakland, Jordan Lyles for Baltimore. Now, Lyles has had a rough start to the year for Baltimore. 0-1 record on the year with a 5.23 ERA. The righty also comes into today's contest with a 1.74 whip. And even if he has a pretty good outing here, I'm really not sure the Orioles can keep up with Oakland offensively. These guys are currently dead last in home runs, and they strike out more times a game at the plate than any other team in the majors. They're taking on an Oakland pitching staff who really doesn't allow a whole lot of runs themselves. They've been pretty good. They're actually in the top 10 in the majors in fewest runs allowed per contest. Meanwhile, offensively, this A's lineup is averaging nearly 5.5 runs a game. Now, Sheldon Noose, he's batting .300 at the plate with 6 RBI and a dozen total bases. Meanwhile, Murphy, Pinder, and Brown, they all have multiple home runs apiece. Now, pitching-wise, did I already talk about Dalton Jeffries? No, okay. Pitching-wise, Dalton Jeffries, he's going to be the starter today, the projected starter, and he's actually had a pretty nice start to the year for himself. He comes into today's ball game with a 1.93 ERA. And when it comes to the total in this one, 5 out of Oakland's last 7 fell under the posted number. They've also held Baltimore to just 3.4 runs a game in their last 10 head-to-head meetings. Meanwhile, the O's on the other side of things, they are a staggering 11-0 to the under for the entire season themselves. One more thing to note here, Oakland had an attendance of like 3,500 yesterday. That's crazy. You'll find more fans at a Hagerstown Suns game. I'm going to lean toward Oakland minus a buck and a quarter and the under 8 runs. Next ball game, Cardinals, Marlins, 6:40 Eastern start time. Miami's minus 135, total 7.5. Sandy Alcantara for Miami. Miles Michaelis for St. Louis. Now, Michaelis is off to a pretty good start here. He's 1-0 with a 2.61 ERA and a 1.16 whip. Meanwhile, offensively, the Cards have one of the best lineups in baseball right now. Very exciting to watch. They're in the top 3 in homers, top 3 in scoring. Nolan Arenado is batting .382 with 4 homers and an OPS of 1.344. Meanwhile, Tommy Edman hit 3 home runs himself and bats .355 at the plate. Now they're taking on a Marlins team who lost 2 out of their last 3. And they scored only 4 total runs in those 2 losses. This Marlins pitching staff has also struggled with opponents' OPS this year as well, really having a tough time keeping them off the base pass. And starting pitcher, Sandy Alcantara, he's walked 6 batters already and has a 1.41 whip, so a little bit of control issues here early in the season for Sandy. Now, total-wise, 3 out of Miami's last 5 home games did get over the posted number. Meanwhile, St. Louis on the other side, they are currently 6-3 to the over in their last 9 outings themselves. These guys actually have the ability to put the total over themselves in any given ball game. I'm going to lean towards St. Louis plus a $1.15 in the over 7.5. All right, next ball game, Angels, Astros, 6:40 p.m. East. The LA Angels are minus 135, totals 8.5. Shohei Ohtani on the bump for Los Angeles. Jake Odorizzi for Houston. Now, Odorizzi's 0-1 on the year with a 6.48 ERA. This Houston pitching staff's also had a tough time getting runners out this year, getting batters out. They're amongst the worst of the American League in opponents' batting average right now. Meanwhile, offensively, on the other side of things, this Houston lineup's being held to just 3.8 runs a game. They're taking on Shohei Ohtani, who struck out 14 batters already in just over 8 innings of work. And hitting-wise, the Angels have certainly been able to hit for power. They're actually in the top 3 in the bigs and homers, top 5 in OPS. Adele, Walsh, Stassi, and Trout, they all have multiple home runs apiece on the season. And no real surprise here, the Angels are scoring well over 5 runs a game on average. Now, total-wise, LA's gone a perfect 6-0 to the over in all of their road games this season. They're also 60% to the over in their last 10 meetings with Houston. Meanwhile, 4 out of the Astros' last 5 outings got over the total of 8.5 runs themselves. I'm going to lean toward the LA Angels minus 135 in the over 8.5. Next contest, Yankees Tigers, 6:40 p.m. East. New York's minus 165, total 7.5. Luis Severino for New York, Eduardo Rodriguez for Detroit. Now, Ed-Rod's 0-1 on the year with a 5.87 ERA and a 1.83 WHIP. Meanwhile, offensively, this could be the worst lineup in the American League. They're batting only 196 as a team, and they actually find themselves in the bottom 5 in OPS. They're taking on a Yankees pitching staff who's actually done a real nice job this year shutting people down. They're giving up only 2.7 runs a game. They're actually limiting their competition to a batting average of just 198. Now, Luis Severino, he's also had a good start to the year as well. Good to see him, kind of looking, a little bit like his old self. He's got a 1-0 record with a 2.25 ERA and a 1.13 WHIP. Now, the righties also fanned 11 batters in just 8 innings of work. Now, total-wise, New York's 4-0 to the under when traveling this year. They're also 9-2 to the under for the entire season at any location. Meanwhile, Detroit's 70% to the under for the entire year themselves. I'm going to lean toward the New York Yankees minus 165 and the under 7.5. Next contest, it is going to be Diamondbacks taking on the Nationals, 7:05 Eastern first pitch. Washington's minus a bucket a quarter, totals 8 runs. Eric Fetty for Washington, Merrill Kelly for Arizona. Kelly's had a real nice start to the season. He struck out 13 batters already in just over 9 innings of work. Kelly's also yet to allow an earned run this year, and he currently has a WHIP of just 1.18. Now, they're taking on a Washington team who struggles getting on base themselves. They're currently in the bottom 10 in OPS, and they're also amongst the worst in the majors in home runs per game. And even though Eric Fetty's had a pretty nice start to the year, the Nats better not go to the bullpen because Washington as a team is in the bottom 3 in the league in opponents' OPS. Now, total-wise, 5 out of Washington's last 6 at Nationals Park fell under the posted number. Meanwhile, Arizona's 4-1 to the under in their last 5 on the road, 9-2 to the under for the entire season at any location. I'm going to lean toward Arizona plus 105 and the under 8 runs. Next ball game, it is going to be Giants taking on the Mets, 7:10 p.m. East. San Francisco's minus a bucket a quarter, total 6.5. Carlos Rodon for San Francisco, Chris Bassett for New York. Now, Bassett's off to a real nice season thus far, 2-0 record and a .75 ERA. Now, the righties also fanned 14 batters in just a dozen innings, and he also has a very low WHIP of just .67. Now, offensively, the Mets are also amongst the better teams in baseball in OPS. Francisco Lindor has hit 3 home runs along with a 1.061 OPS. Meanwhile, Brandon Nimmo's hit a couple of homers himself and also has an OPS of 1.036. When it comes to putting runners across the plate, New York doesn't shy away from that either. They're averaging just about 5 runs a game. Now, they're taking on a Giants team who's certainly not built for a track meet offensively themselves. These guys are fanning nearly 10 times a game at the plate, and they also have had a pretty tough time getting on base this year. Now, total-wise, 7 out of San Francisco's last 10 meetings with New York fell under the number. So once again, if you're into historical trends, plenty of unders to go around. They're also 64% to the under for the entire season this year as well. Meanwhile, the Mets on the other side of things, they are currently 67% to the under for the entire season themselves. I'm going to go ahead and lean toward the New York Mets plus 105 and the under 6.5. Next ball game, it is going to be Blue Jays taking on the Red Sox, 7:10 Eastern start time. Toronto's minus a bucket a quarter with the total at 9 runs. Jose Barrios for the Jays, Nick Pivetta for Boston. And even though Pavetta's off to a bit of a rough start, these Bo Sox pitchers as a whole, they've actually done a real nice job striking batters out this season. They're fanning nearly double-digit batters a game, and they actually rank amongst the best in the American League in that particular category. Meanwhile, offensively, on the other side of things, the Bo Sox have a handful of guys who can really hit the baseball well. Alex Verdugo's hit 3 home runs and has an OPS of 1.034. Meanwhile, Rafael Devers, he's batting .319 with a couple of homers and 8 total runs. Now they're taking on Jose Barrios, who's walked 5 batters in just over 5 innings of work. And he also has an 11.81 ERA. Meanwhile, offensively, the Jays are currently in the bottom 10 in the bigs in scoring on average per contest. Now, total-wise, 4 out of Toronto's last 5 road games fell under the number. No real surprise there. They're also 64% to the under for the entire season at any location. Meanwhile, Boston saw 7 out of their last 11 contests fall under the line themselves. I'm going to lean toward Boston plus 105 and the under 9 runs. Next contest, it is going to be Rays taking on the Cubs, 7:40 Eastern first pitch. Tampa Bay's minus 120, totals 9 runs. Drew Rasmussen for Tampa Bay, Marcus Stroman for Chicago. And despite a bit of a shaky start to the season for Stroman, he's backed by a Cubbies lineup who definitely likes to hit the baseball. They can keep up with any team in the majors offensively. They're actually in the top 3 in the bigs right now in both batting average and OPS. Seiya Suzuki's hit 4 home runs and has an OPS of 1.478. Meanwhile, Jonathan Villar is batting .400 with 10 hits and 4 ribbies. Now they're taking on a Tampa pitching staff who struggles with homers and runs allowed. The Rays are actually in the bottom 10 in the majors in both of those categories I just mentioned. Meanwhile, offensively at the plate, the Rays have really had some difficulty hitting for power. These guys are amongst the worst in the majors in home runs per 9. Now, total-wise, 6 out of Tampa's last 10 meetings with Chicago did actually get over the line. Another one of those historical trends there. Meanwhile, the Cubbies on the other side, they saw 4 out of their last 5 this year at Wrigley get over the posted total themselves. I'm going to lean toward Chicago plus $1 and the over 9 runs. Next contest, Twins, Royals, 8:10 Eastern, first pitch. Minnesota's minus $1.25, totals 9 runs. Chris Paddock for the Twins, Daniel Lynch for Kansas City. Now, Lynch is actually having a rough start to the year. 0-1 record, 10.80 ERA. Meanwhile, offensively, the Royals simply haven't been scoring enough. They're averaging only 3.2 runs a game offensively, and they actually find themselves in the bottom 5 in the league in OPS. They're taking on a Minnesota lineup on the other side of things who does a real nice job hitting for power themselves. Matter of fact, these guys find themselves in the top 10 in the majors right now in homers per game. Now, Byron Buxton, he's hit 3 home runs on the year, 1.058 OPS for the slugger, and of course, he's still battling that knee injury. I think he's healthy enough to DH for these guys, but you definitely want to keep an eye on his status. Meanwhile, teammate Luis Arias is batting .323 with a homer and 4 runs scored. Now, total-wise, Minnesota's gone 8-3 to the under in their last 11 ball games. Meanwhile, the Royals are 6-2 to the under at Kauffman Stadium this year. I'm going to lean toward Minnesota minus $1.25. And the under 9 runs. But that, guys, we're going to jump into our next and final matchup of the show. It is going to be Rangers taking on the Mariners, 9:40 Eastern first pitch. Seattle's minus 145, total 7.5. Logan Gilbert for Seattle, Dane Dunning for Texas. Now, Dunning's been getting knocked around a bit this season. He's got a 5.19 ERA and a 1.73 whip. And as a matter of fact, this Rangers pitching staff has actually been the worst in baseball to start the season. They allow more runs and homers per contest than any other team in the bigs. They're also dead last right now in opponents' batting average and OPS. They're taking on a Seattle team who loves to hit the long ball themselves. These guys are actually amongst the best in the American League in home runs per contest. Now, Mitch Haniger and Eugenio Suarez, they each have 3 home runs apiece. Meanwhile, France and Kelenic, they have 2 home runs apiece as well. When it comes to the pitching, Logan Gilbert looked awesome in a couple of starts. He's got 11 strikeouts and 10 innings of work, along with a .90 ERA. Now, Gilbert is officially 1-0 in the year with a whip of just .80. When it comes to the total in this one, 3 out of Seattle's last 4 home games got over the posted number. Meanwhile, Texas is 80% to the over for the entire season themselves. I'm going to lean towards Seattle -145 in the over 7.5. And with that, guys, now it's time for our quick pick recap. Powered to you by my website at brockpage.com, where we are currently 3-0 in our last 3 board member tier package bets following Tuesday's sports wagering action. I like Pittsburgh +1.5 under 8 runs. Cleveland -135 over 8 runs in Game 1 of the doubleheader. I like Colorado +$1 under 11. LA Dodgers -130 under 8.5. San Diego -1.5 over 8.5. Cleveland Guardians -$1.20 over 8.5 in Game 2. Give me Oakland -$1.25 under 8 runs. St. Louis +$1.15 over 7.5. LA Angels -135 over 8.5. New York Yankees -165 under 7.5. Arizona +105 under 8 runs. New York Mets +105 under 6.5. Boston +105 under 9 runs. Chicago Cubs +$1 over 9. I also like Minnesota -$1.25 under 9 runs. And with my next and final free pick for the video, I'm going to lean towards Seattle -145 in the over 7.5. But with that, guys, that's going to do it for me. Don't forget to check me out on brockpage.com. Now, if you guys do end up getting a membership here today on my website, just keep in mind, you're going to get billed the day you sign up and then the first of every month following that. I always tell folks in every single video, the earlier in the month you sign up, the better. And guys, if you want to get access to every single bet that I give out on that website, you're going to want to sign up for my board member tier package. Now, guys, you may be wondering what the difference is between what I do here on YouTube and what I do on my website. Well, what I do here on YouTube is I'll handicap the entire slate of games in any given sport, side and total. What I do on brockpage.com is actually share with you which one of these free YouTube picks on my channel that I'm actually betting on personally. But most importantly, guys, gotta thank you for joining me right here on YouTube. Really hope you enjoyed all this great free content, all this great free information. With that said, guys, happy Tuesday, happy Wednesday to you. Happy 420 to you. And I look forward to seeing you later on today on my website at brockpage.com.